Imagine someone in your camp gets the best cut of meat every night, not because they work harder, not because they are stronger, just because someone likes them more. You get the scraps. You watch. You say nothing, but something moves inside you, something hot and quiet and difficult to name. You have felt this before. So had they. Jealousy is not a modern invention. It is not something that came with social media, or money, or Instagram. It is something far older. Something that was already running inside human beings long before language existed to describe it. The question is not whether ancient humans felt jealous. They almost certainly did. The real question is what happened when they did. What did a person do with that feeling when there was no word for it, no therapist, no way to leave, and nowhere private to fall apart? To understand that, you have to understand what jealousy actually is. Not the story we tell about it, but the biology underneath it. Jealousy is not one emotion. It is a cluster. Fear of losing something valuable, anger at whoever threatens that loss, a sharp awareness that someone else might take your place. Researchers who study emotion across cultures have found versions of this cluster in every human society ever examined. It appears in isolated tribes, it appears in urban populations, it appears in children too young to have learned it from anyone. That pattern suggests something important. Jealousy is not taught, it is built in. And if it is built in now, it was almost certainly built in then. But why would evolution keep something so painful? Because jealousy is not random suffering. It is information in a world where a mate, a food source, or a social bond could determine whether you survived or not. The ability to notice a threat to those things had real value. A person who felt nothing when a rival moved closer to their partner might lose that partner. A person who felt nothing when someone else was getting more food might slowly starve. The discomfort of jealousy was the alarm system. It forced attention, it forced action, it may have saved lives more times than anyone could count. But ancient life had a particular problem that made jealousy even more complicated. There was no space. A typical hunter-gatherer band had 20 to 30 people. Everyone knew everyone. You slept within a few feet of the people you were jealous of. You hunted with them, you ate with them, you needed them, you could not block them, you could not move to a different city, you could not avoid them at work. The person who made your chest tighten with that hot, wordless feeling was also the person you depended on to help carry the animal home. Anthropologists, who have studied modern hunter-gatherer groups, have noticed something striking. These communities are unusually skilled at managing the emotions that could tear a group apart, not because they have suppressed those emotions, but because they have built structures around them. The Hadza of Tanzania, the Kung of the Kalahari, the Agtea of the Philippines. All of them have developed ways of keeping jealousy from becoming destruction. One of the most powerful tools is leveling. No one is allowed to rise too far above anyone else. If someone accumulates too much food, too much attention, too much status, the group pushes back. Jokes, teasing, quiet social pressure. The person who starts to take more than their share gets mocked until they stop. This is not cruelty, it is engineering. A community that manages status inequality manages jealousy at its source. But leveling does not make jealousy disappear. It only controls the conditions that make it worse. And inside those small bands, the feeling itself still moves through people the way it moves through us. A partner spending more time with someone else, a sibling receiving more care, a hunter getting more praise. These moments happened. And when they did, people felt what we feel. What did they do with it? Some evidence comes from the patterns of violence in ancient populations. Skeletal remains from prehistoric sites sometimes show healed injuries consistent with interpersonal conflict, not warfare injuries, personal ones, the kind that happen between people who know each other. Researchers have found evidence of this in populations across different continents and time periods. The body keeps a record even when the story does not survive. Some of that violence was almost certainly driven by jealousy, a rival for a mate, a perceived betrayal, a feeling that had no other exit. But violence was not the dominant response. It could not have been. A group of 30 people cannot absorb constant violence and survive. Something else had to happen first. And what probably happened first was what still happens in the hunter-gatherer communities we can observe today. People talked, not calmly, not always. But they talked, they complained to others. They told their version of the story. Gossip in these communities is not trivial noise. It is the system. It distributes information about who did what to whom. It recruits allies. It applies pressure without direct confrontation. A jealous person who whispered their grievance to 3 others had done something real. The group had been informed. The social weight had shifted slightly. That mattered. And then there was the option of leaving, not forever, just for a while. Among the Kung, when tension became unbearable, people voted with their feet. They moved to another band for a few weeks. By the time they returned, the sharpest edge of the feeling had dulled. The situation had often changed, the rival had moved on, the partner had made a choice, time had done what no confrontation could. This flexibility of movement may have been one of the most important emotional tools ancient humans had. We cannot always see it in the archaeological record, but we can see it in the behavior of groups that still live this way. The ability to leave was not weakness, it was a pressure valve, a way of surviving your own feelings without destroying the relationships you needed to survive. What ancient humans almost certainly did not do is what we do now. They did not sit alone with the feeling for weeks. They did not replay it in their minds at 2 in the morning. They did not have a phone to check obsessively to see if the person who made them jealous was having a better time somewhere else. The modern architecture of jealousy, the way we feed it, the way we document it, the way we compare ourselves to people we have never met, that is new. The feeling is old. The suffering we have built around it is something we invented ourselves. There is something both humbling and oddly comforting in that. The ancient human lying on a hide beside a dying fire, watching someone they wanted choose someone else, was feeling something real, something chemical and old and completely human. They did not have a word for it, they did not have a framework for processing it, but they felt it the same way we feel it in the chest behind the eyes. In that particular silence that follows a moment you cannot take back, and they survived it, not by solving it, not by becoming someone who no longer felt it, but by moving through it the way humans have always moved through the things that hurt them, by talking, by leaving when they needed to, by letting the community hold the pressure that one person could not carry alone, by waking up the next morning and doing what had to be done anyway. Jealousy did not break them, it shaped them, it pushed them toward the social structures that kept groups together. It drove them to invest more, try harder, stay closer to the people who mattered. The alarm went off, and often they listened. We still carry that alarm. It still goes off in the same situations, over the same fears, for the same reasons it did 100,000 years ago. We have just added more ways to hear it, and fewer ways to escape it. The feeling is ancient. What we do with it is still being figured out.